Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Margaret. How are you?
I'm good.
I've
I'm
got
good.
I've got some feedback for you.
Huh? Thanks, Michelle.
When you say that, how does it make you feel? It kind of makes you feel a bit like, yeah, what are you about to say?
Knowing what we were about to discuss, and it still makes me uneasy. Maybe it's you saying it.
Well, that's what we are here to discuss today is feedback. And we've been chatting about this loads because loads of our clients are talking about it. There's and there's a lot of talk about feedback and how we do it and how often we do it and why we do it and all that kind of stuff. So great little topic. And I say little, it's not, it's massive. There's so much to talk about in this. Where would you like to start?
You know what I feel about feedback? I think it's overcomplicated. I think that, people are being trained to give effective feedback.
Hey, hang on, you're taking away our business here.
Feedback, the more it is incorporated into our daily conversations, our daily interactions, and I don't think it should be something that is boxed off from the rest of our interactions. We were talking earlier about how when you're really clear that your intentions are positive to the recipients of your feedback, we don't have to get so hung up on the approach we take or the wording we take. If we're talking to a friend, to a colleague, somebody we care about, and we genuinely want the best for them, and when we have positive intentions, we are going to, whether it's intentional or not, we are going to balance that positive and that negative. I think first and foremost, it's where are you coming from and why you are giving feedback. When you do have that balance, when you do emphasize the positives and the areas that you see as areas for growth rather than areas to critique.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? Because I think it has to be more than good intention. There has to be kind of some some thought behind how you do give feedback. I think so. I think we should talk about radical candor here. This is a book by Kim Scott and kind of a model for feedback by Kim Scott. And the thing about it is like that if we have if we've great intent, but then we go and just kind of keep nitpicking and keep, giving feedback and we say feedback because sometimes it's very often we're talking about negative feedback. And if you keep repeatedly just giving that negative feedback, that's really, really hard. And actually it starts to go into that obnoxious aggression category when it's like, in the interest of radical candor, let me just feed back to you, Margaret, that, I really don't like you. No, that's not feedback. That's opinion. It's obnoxious aggression. It's not nice. Whereas with radical candor, I think it's trying to get that balance between challenge directly, absolutely, and caring personally. And it's when you can kind of get the right balance between those, that's when feedback can be really, really valuable and help real growth,
And I think, so when I hear radical candor, I get a bit uncomfortable. And I think the problem has been that Kim Scott's book, it's very well known. It's been a very successful book, but lots of people have never read the book that talk about using radical candor themselves. And I think that many of these people who've seen it on the airport bookshelves, but have never actually sat down and read the book, or even read a synopsis of the book, because that quite often is enough, that those people who read radical candor, they think it gives license to be obnoxious, to be uncaring. Whereas Kim Scott's argument is the opposite to that. It's that you must always couch your feedback in that caring personally about the people. One of the big questions we get asked all the time is, how often should we be giving feedback? So we've come from a world where feedback was maybe once a year. and the annual appraisal, the only time many people got any feedback at all on how they were doing, how they were relating to the people in their team, their performance, their technical abilities. It was like this 1 hour annual appraisal. So thankfully, we've come a long way since then, but still, there's a lot of uncertainty. You know, am I doing this right? How often should I do it? So I think that we talk a lot about how far removed this formal appraisal system is from how in the rest of our world that feedback is just something that's just part of our daily interactions as a parent, as a coach, a football coach, a hurling coach. They don't wait until the end of the season, or you don't wait until your child hits a milestone birthday to give some feedback on something they did brilliantly 4 months before. It's not formal. There is a method to how we deliver it. And the same with a coach, a sporting coach. But what it's about is it's about real time feedback.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, I do actually have to go soon because I do have a Zoom call with my toddler to give them feedback on an earlier episode on their year's progress. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's how we do that as well. You know, that we're balancing it with some positive stuff. You know, a coach will not just be yelling at the side and you know, or a football coach, whatever, giving negative feedback all the time. You've got to be able to look at what's really working well, and be really specific about that. So, you know, rather than saying that was a great job, kind of, I love this thing about, you know, if you can kind of say it to your dog, then it's probably not very effective feedback, right? Good job, good boy. But if you can actually add specificity to it and actually say, this is a great job because what happened when you did this, the impact to the team was this, the outcome was that. You know, if you hadn't have done that, or if you hadn't have been part of the team, that wouldn't have, this is what you brought to it. And being really specific about it can really help creativity and learning and growing in your strengths. You know, so, you know, I know we've talked about strengths in the past, but it is where we get a lot of our learning from. Like at the start, you know, when I was joking and saying, oh, I've got some feedback for you, literally your brain shuts down. You go, oh God, someone's going to say something bad to me. You go into fight or flight mode. You think, how am I going to survive this next 5 minutes, you know, and just get out alive type thing, because I know somebody's going to say something bad to me. And just making sure that if it's regular, if it's positive and negative separately, right? So you don't try and give both together, like give it individually. So, you know, Margaret, we worked on a project, you know, I felt like we could have improved this, you know, to get this outcome. Could we work on that together, rather than, you know, mixing it with the positive stuff? You just don't hear it properly, right? You'll hear either the positive or the negative. Most people hear the negative, but some people will just walk out hearing the positive and won't have heard the negative at all.
I think what you've just said there sums it up. That in the example you gave it, you were specific, and then you said, can we work on this together? And this is key to it. It's making it actionable. Really and truly, does it matter whether you like how I approach something? Really, this has nothing to do with what we like or what we don't like. It's about sitting with your team members and ensuring that feedback is live, that it is delivered with radical candor, absolutely, that it is actionable feedback.
And it's fact-based. And we're clear when it's an opinion, because most feedback is an opinion. Exactly what you said there. It's not about what you like or what you don't like. That's just subjective stuff. I could really like something. Somebody else could really not like something. And that's just subjective, opinion-based feedback. Feedback should be anchored in fact as much as possible and focused on outcomes, not blame. And that's the other thing. It's like how we feedback as well, and actually how we receive feedback. I think this is so key, because as leaders, as managers, how you receive and how you solicit feedback is really important. Asking for feedback all of the time. So, and even when you get some negative feedback, so if I say, and I wouldn't ask you for feedback because I know it'll always be really negative. Joking. But like, even if you get feedback and you ask for it and it's negative, you'll always feel that little, oh God, sorry I asked now, but it is a learning opportunity. And by showing how to take feedback, by taking that constructive feedback with grace, thanking the person, saying, thanks for giving me that feedback, Margaret, I actually really appreciate that. Going off, actually thinking about it, right? Percolating with it a little bit and deciding, okay, is this feedback really useful? If so, yeah, I'm actually going to make a change. And feeding back, Margaret, I really appreciate that you fed back to me the other day on this. And actually, as a result, this is what I'm going to do. Thank you. Seeing the impact that your feedback has on the learning of a leader or a manager, that is just being an exemplar for the employees, and how, for the rest of the employees, and how you can actually take feedback and what it means and how we feed back to each other, and creating that culture of feedback, that it's safe to give feedback, that it's a learning opportunity, that it is something that we act upon.
Any leader who would be encouraging and nurturing this feeding upwards culture, you have to be aware that this takes bravery. So you have to find a way that makes it safe for your team to feed up. And in every team, there's a different way of doing this, but it's important that, just because you say to your team regularly, oh, I want feedback, I'm able for it, give me any feedback. It would be a foolhardy team member that would just decide to start throwing anything that could be construed in any way as critical. So it's with each team and with each team leader, they need to find what's going to work and how do I communicate this, that ultimately the whole team grows if that leader is successful in nurturing that feeding up.
100%. And it's one of the hardest things. We talk about psychological safety. We talk about, open door policy. You can say anything to me. At the end of the day, if you've got, your salary that's covering your mortgage and your childcare and your, all of these expenses, and if somebody has the power to take that away very quickly, it is incredibly hard then for them to create that real security.
Yeah.
And so they've got to be, like you said, absolutely, a really brave leader has to be able to repeatedly exemplify that, to show that by being candid, by challenging directly and caring personally, doing it at the right time, doing it in the right way, will really, really help a learning environment. Like, that is so, so valuable and so brave. So brave. That's what we need to see more of.
And Michelle, there's no easy formula for this, but there has to be a way to move feedback from being something that is to be feared and something that is approached with trepidation to something that people are excited about. Yeah. Because teams that have got it, teams that really, really give each other powerful feedback, that feedback results in everyone's growth, everyone's development, and ultimately a really successful team. Yeah. Without creating the conditions where people can give feedback confidently, comfortably, and candidly. I don't know if a team can thrive in the long term. Yeah, you can have your initial successes, but to thrive in the long term, that those conditions have to be created. And for each team, it's a different approach they need to take. But back to it, have it actionable, have it, be candid, be caring, and what was the first? Be specific and in real time.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think that's a really good point. I've two things that sprung into mind as you were talking there. One is team feedback. So a lot of the time when we're talking about feedback, we kind of, first off, we think of the kind of annual appraisal one-to-one. Actually, it's more regular than that. But the second thing we think of that we kind of rarely think of is that team environment feedback. And retrospectives are a brilliant way of giving a team feedback. And it's not, one person giving feedback to a team. It is everybody coming in and feeding back to each other. And it's not about blame. It's not personal. It is about outcome focused retrospectives. So you've come up, you've done a great project together or a bad project together, whatever it is, you come to a point where you stop, you take a moment, you take an hour together and you look at what worked, what didn't work, what would you change next time, what are your recommendations, was there anything left unsaid, and you start to examine that as a team. That is an incredible way of feeding back and creating that feedback culture, that open feedback culture and feedback loop, that is outside the kind of one-to-one environment as well. And the second piece there, just when you mentioned something, I thought of it, was that when we're talking about leadership and feedback, I've read some research recently which said that kind of higher up we go. Now, this is kind of counterintuitive as an employee at times, right? But the higher up you go, actually the kind of more constructive feedback, the better, because you will learn, maybe it's a confidence thing, or maybe it's an experience thing, or maybe whatever it is, but that kind of, they don't need that more positive reinforcement. They actually need, hey, and it's probably because everybody around them is kind of saying, yes, of course, no problem. They actually need people to say, hey, do you know what about if we did this? This would have a better outcome for everybody. And having that real honesty, that kind of, challenger piece. And actually that book from a client of ours, The Challenger Sale, like it's all about that, being able to kind of give that honest feedback, so that you're not just plumosing people, and particularly people in power, but you actually have the bravery, and they've given you the opportunity, and they are vulnerable enough to take that feedback. That's a really, really powerful thing.
And that comes out year after year in our employee engagement surveys. Everyone in a company responds to an employee engagement, from up to the CEO of a company. And it's really clear that the longer you're in a company and the more senior you are in a company, the less feedback you're getting.
Yes.
And to have reached that position, I'm sure you're incredibly ambitious, you have a desire to learn, and that gets capped where it stops. And that's why so many senior people have to go outside a company to bring in an executive coach, because they're not being brought into those conversations in their own company.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a whole other thing around this, right? Around like, failure and, safe to fail, and, that kind of power and, that power dynamic, all for another day video. But I think we've done a fairly good sum up of a kind of high level of feedback here today. So thank you so much, Margaret.
Thanks, Michelle. Good to talk to you. Have a lovely weekend.
You too. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Michelle.